Welcome back to Mr. Ace Math. This lesson is on geometric translations. Some stuff you should know before you begin the lesson are the XY coordinate plane, basically your X and Y axes, how to plot points, and how to add integers. So make sure you know those and let's get started. So first of all, what exactly is a translation? A translation is basically the sliding of a point or figure. And this can be done up, right, down, left, or any combination of the two. Let's say, for example, we have this triangle here, and we want to translate that figure. We can move it down and to the right, we can move it down and to the left, we can move it up and to the left, or up and to the right. But everything you just saw is technically a translation because you're not changing the way the figure looks, you're not changing its size, you're not changing the shape, you're not rotating it, you're literally just sliding it around. So when you're dealing with translations, it's really important to make sure you know what the rule is. The rule just tells you exactly how to move or translate your point. So for example, the rule could say move left 3 and up 5, move right 8 and up 2, move left 7 and down 10, or right 4 and up 6. It can look just like this. So how do we name a translation? Well, after you move a point using the rule, the new point is labeled as a prime. For example, A becomes A prime, this little notation here makes it a prime. B becomes B prime, and it's read as B prime. And if you have point C, C becomes C prime. Again, this little notation up here at the upper right corner of the letter makes it a prime. So translation notation, what does it look like whenever we're using a translation or whenever we're translating a figure or point? The rule says left 4. Let's say we're starting off with the point P with the X coordinate here and the Y coordinate here. Let's look at an XY coordinate plane. Here's our XY coordinate plane. Well, our P prime is going to be what? Well, if the rule says left 4, how do you think that's going to affect our coordinates for point P? What is P prime going to become? Remember that the x-axis over here tells you that your negative points are to the left. And when you do that, you subtract. Or your positive values are to the right. And that tells you have to add to your x-coordinate. Well, here we're saying that we're moving left 4. Since we're moving left 4, we are going to basically subtract 4 from whatever our x-coordinate is. So that's going to be x minus 4, y. Our y doesn't change value because we're not talking about going up or down at all. But because we're moving left 4, we're subtracting 4. How about here? If our point is 10, 8, then what's our p prime going to be? Remember, we're moving left 4. So what happens? Does our x-coordinate change or does our y-coordinate change? Well, our x-coordinate changes. And the reason why is because the x-axis tells us if we move left or right. Since we're moving left, we're going to subtract 4 from our x-coordinate. Since our x-coordinate is 10, we're going to have 10 minus 4, and then our 8 stays the same. Well, what's 10 minus 4? That's going to be 6. So our new coordinates for our new point P prime are 6, 8. How about if our rule is to move to the right 8 spaces? Well, here's our point P with coordinates x, y. Well, first of all, what do you think is going to change, our x or our y? Well, think about it. The x-axis tells us if we move left or right. Since that's the case, our x-coordinate is going to change. But how is it going to change? In our last example, we moved to the left, and that meant that we had to subtract. This time we're moving to the right, and when we move to the right on our x-axis, that means we have to add. So that's going to be p prime at x plus 8, y. So our y stays the same, it's not touched, but we add 8 to our x-coordinate. So let's take a look at an example. Again, we'll start with the point P at 10, 8. What's our p prime going to be? Well, p prime is going to be 8 more to the right, so we have to add 8 to our 10 because we're moving 8 to the right, and y stays the same. So we'll just rewrite that. So our new coordinates are 10 plus 8 8. Well, what's 10 plus 8? That's going to be 18. Therefore, our P prime is at 18, 8. This time, we have a different kind of example. We have a rule that says to go down 5. Now, we've gone over an example where we move left, and we've gone over an example where we move right. And in both of those cases, our x-coordinate has changed. And the reason why our x-coordinate changed was because we moved left or right, and our x-axis tells us how to move left or right on the xy plane. But here we're going down 5. So what do you think is going to change this time? The x or the y? Well, that's going to be the y-axis. Our y value is going to change. So how is that going to change our p prime? So our y value is going to change in such a way that we're going to add if we go up, because that's where the positive values are, and we're going to subtract if we go down, because that's where our negative values are. So if we move up, we add because that's where the positive values are, and if we're going down, we subtract because that's where our negative values are. That's where the values get more negative. So in our example here where we go down 5, how does that affect our coordinates here, x and y? Well, our x stays the same, but our y is going to be minus 5 because we're going down by 5. Let's use actual numbers. If we have the point P at 9, 5, our P prime is going to be what? Well, our x-coordinate isn't changing at all. That stays the same. But our y-coordinate is going to be 5 minus 5 because we're going down by 5. And what's 5 minus 5? That's 0. Therefore, our point is P prime at 9, 0. And what if we go up 7? How's that going to affect our point P at xy? Well, for our P prime, our x value isn't changing at all because we're not going left or right. But our y value is going to increase by 7 because this time we're going up. And since we're going up, we have to add. So let's take an example with actual numbers. Let's say we have the point P at 9, 5. Well, then how is our rule of going up 7 going to affect our coordinates? Well, that means that P prime is going to be at 9, because remember, we're not going left or right, so our x value stays the same. And our 5 is going to become 5 plus 7. We're adding 7 to our original 5 because we're going up 7. And what's 5 plus 7? That's going to give us 12. So our P prime is at 9, 12. Well, how about when we have a rule that has more than one part? We've done examples where we just go up, or we just go down, or we just go left, or we just go right. But what about when we have more than one thing to do for our rule? Let's say our rule is to move our figure 5 units to the left and 8 units down. And let's say we have the triangle ABC. Well, their coordinates are right here. And what are we going to do to our coordinates? Well, A is at 8, 8. And our rule says to move 5 units to the left and 8 units down. So we're going to do this. Our A prime is going to be at 8 minus 5 because we're going 5 to the left and 8 units down. So it's going to be 8 minus 8. Our x value is going to decrease by 5 because we're going 5 to the left. And our y coordinate is going to go down by 8 because we're actually moving down on the y axis. So our new coordinates for A prime are going to be 3, 0. How about for B? Our point B is at 3, 3. And we're going to subtract 5 from our x because we're going 5 left. And we're going to subtract 8 from our y because we're going 8 down. And that's going to be B prime at 3 minus 5, 3 minus 8. 3 minus 5 is going to be minus 2 or negative 2. And 3 minus 8 is going to be negative 5. So my B prime is at negative 2, negative 5. And my C is at 9, 4. Well, I'm going to subtract 5 from my x because I'm going 5 to the left. And I'm going to subtract 8 from my y because I'm going 8 down. So that's going to be 9 minus 5 and 4 minus 8. Well, C prime is going to be at 9 minus 5, which is going to be 4, and 4 minus 8, which is negative 4. So C prime is going to be at 4, negative 4. And now all I do is plot my points. When I plot these points, it's the same exact thing as if I followed the rule from the start. I'm going to take each point, and I'm going to go 5 units to the left, and I'm going to go 8 units down. So watch what happens to A when I do that. That's going to be 5 units to the left and 8 units down. And then we're just going to plot our A prime at that point. And that's going to be at the coordinates that we found before. We're doing the same thing with B. we're going to go 5 to the left and 8 down, and that's going to give us B prime at -2, -5. And we do the same thing to C, and that's going to give us C prime, which is going to be at 4, -4, which we found before, and that gives us our image A prime, B prime, C prime. It's also very important to note that when you're talking about figures and transformations, in this case a translation, which we're just sliding a figure around, our original is called our figure, and our translation is called our image, because this is our original. This is the figure that we started off with, and what we're doing to it isn't the original, it's just an image of it. So therefore, the translation is also called the image. How about here? We have a quadrilateral, A, B, C, D, and our rule is to go 10 units to the right and 3 units down. Well, what is this rule going to do to my x and y coordinates? Well, I'm going 10 units to the right. Since I'm going 10 units to the right, that means I'm going to add 10 to my x coordinates. And since I'm going 3 units down, I'm going to subtract 3 from each of my y coordinates. So let's start with point A at -8, 1. Our A prime is going to be -8 plus 10 and 1 minus 3. And again, that's because we're moving 10 to the right, so we add 10 to our x. And we're going 3 down, so we subtract 3 from our y. And that's going to give us A prime at 2, -2. How about B? Well, B prime is going to be -9 plus 10 and -2 minus 3. Again, -9 plus 10 because I'm going 10 to the right, and -2 minus 3 because I'm going 3 units down. And that's going to give me B prime at 1, -5. How about C? Well, my C prime is going to be -3 plus 10 and -4 minus 3. Again, I'm adding 10 to my x coordinate, and I'm subtracting 3 from my y coordinate. And that's going to give me C prime at 7, -7. And D is going to be D prime at -2 plus 10 and 2 minus 3. Again, because I'm going 10 to the right, my x increases by 10, and because I'm going 3 units down, my y decreases by 3. And that's going to give me D prime at 8, -1. And now all I have to do is just take my points here of my image, my translation, and plot them. That's going to be A prime, B prime, C prime, and D prime. I connect them, and that gives me my new image, which is A prime, B prime, C prime, D prime. Again, remember, this is a translation, so we should have an image that looks exactly like the original figure. All we've done is literally move the entire figure 10 units to the right and 3 units down and place it for our image. Here we have triangle XYZ, and our rule is to move 12 units to the right and 10 units up. Again, how is that going to affect our x and y coordinates? Well, our first part of the rule says to move 12 units to the right, so that's going to affect our x coordinate. And because we're moving to the right, we're going to add 12 to our x coordinates, and here it says 10 units up. So we're also going to add 10 to our y coordinates. So let's take a look at x. X is going to become x prime at -4 plus 12 and -2 plus 10. Again, we're adding 12 because we're moving 12 to the right, and we're adding 10 because we're moving 10 up. And that's going to give us x prime at 8, 8. Y is going to become y prime at -10 plus 12 and -3 plus 10. Again, plus 12 because we're moving 12 to the right, and plus 10 because we're moving 10 up. And that's going to give us y prime at +2, +7. And how about z? Z is going to become z prime at -5 plus 12, -9 plus 10. Again, -5 plus 12 because we're moving 12 to the right, and -9 plus 10 because we're moving 10 units up. And when we do that, that's going to give us z prime at 7, 2. And the last thing to do is just plot our points. The first one is x prime, the second one is y prime, and the last one is z prime. Connect them, and that gives us our image x prime, y prime, z prime. And here's our last example. Here we have quadrilateral QRST. And our rule says to move 5 units to the left and 3 units up. And since we're moving 5 units to the left, how is that going to affect our x coordinate? Well, we're moving left, so we have to subtract 5. And here we're saying that we have to move 3 units up. And how is that going to affect our y coordinates? Well, since we're moving up, we're going to add 3 to each of these. So let's take a look. Q is going to become Q prime at 5 minus 5, 5 plus 3. Because our x coordinate, 5, is going 5 to the left, so we're going to subtract 5. And then the 5 of our y coordinate is going to move 3 units up, so we're adding 3. And that's going to give us Q prime at 0, 8. How about R? R is going to become R prime at 2 minus 5, negative 1 plus 3. Again, minus 5 because we're going 5 to the left, and plus 3 for the y because we're going 3 up. And that's going to give us R prime at negative 3, 2. How about S? S is going to become S prime at 8 minus 5, negative 3 plus 3. Again, 8 minus 5 because we're going 5 to the left, and negative 3 plus 3 because we're going 3 units up. And that's going to give us S prime at 3, 0. And finally, we have T. And T is going to become T prime at 9 minus 5, 3 plus 3. Again, we're subtracting 5 from our x coordinate because we're going 5 to the left, and we're adding 3 to our y coordinate because we're going 3 units up. And that's going to give us our new coordinates, which are T prime at 4, 6. The last thing to do is just plot our points. That's going to be Q prime, R prime, S prime, and T prime. And that's going to be our image, Q prime, R prime, S prime, T prime. So here's your pause and practice. Just pause and practice. When you're done, unpause the video. After a 3, 2, 1 countdown, your answer will be displayed. Go. So let's review our answers. Number 1, W becomes W prime at negative 5, 3. Number 2, T becomes T prime at 5, 11. Number 3, Z becomes Z prime at negative 9, negative 4. Number 4, C becomes C prime at 11, 3. And number 5 we go over on the next page. So here we have our figure STU. Our rule is to go 5 units to the right and 6 units down. So because we're going 5 units to the right, we're going to add 5 to each of our x coordinates. And because we're going 6 units down, we're going to subtract 6 units from each of our y coordinates. So S becomes S prime at 3 plus 5, 5 minus 6. Again, it's 3 plus 5 because we're going 5 to the right. And we're subtracting 6 here because we're going 6 units down. And our result is S prime at 8, negative 1. T becomes T prime at negative 2 plus 5 and 3 minus 6. Again, plus 5 because we're going 5 to the right, and minus 6 because we're going 6 down. That's going to give us T prime at 3, negative 3. And our last letter is U, and we just have to translate U. Again, we're going 5 to the right and 6 down, so U is going to become U prime at negative 7 plus 5, positive 7 minus 6. Our x coordinate, negative 7, we're adding 5 to it because we're going 5 to the right. And our y coordinate, 7, we're subtracting 6 from it because we're going 6 units down. And that's going to give us U prime at negative 2, 1. We plot our points, S prime, T prime, U prime, and that gives us our image. Remember, our original shape here is called the figure, STU. This is figure STU. Our translation of that figure is called the image. So this is image S prime, T prime, U prime. So let's review our lesson. The sliding of a point or figure is called a translation. When you translate a shape or figure, you must use the rule. When you transform a point, the new point is called a prime. The result of translating a figure is called the image. When you move a point to the right, you must add to the x value. When you move a point down, you must subtract from the y value. When you move a point to the left, you must subtract from the x value. And when you move a point up, you must add to the y value.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And thanks for using Mr. Ace Math. Don't just pass math, ace it.